So I've played against my age group, like Dele Alli, Jack Grealish. I think I've come up against Rashford previously, obviously James Maddison. Like at the time for me, it was like Kyle Akimi, who was #1, and I had Wayne Hennessy there at the time, and Thomas Kuszczak. And Thomas Kuszczak had won the Premiership and Champions League, being on the bench in the 23s at Wolves to being involved in a first team at League One. So I thought, like, I was sponsored by Puma, I'd bought sales, I'd been to Just Keepers where my dad would spend £60, £70 on a pair of all sports for me to come back and say, Dad, they're ruined after a game or two. I've always had the idea of making my own gloves, but you're very optimistic when you first start messaging suppliers.
Yes guys, welcome back to another video here on the Andy #1 channel. Today's video is a new series which we're terming Tuesday Talk. So live Instagram chats on a Tuesday with coaches, players, anyone involved in football, and we're going to chat to them about their experiences, about a whole wide range of topics. Today's guest and the first up is Scott Dutton. Now Scott is the owner and founder of S1 Goalkeeping gloves. So I've been working with S1 for the last 3 years or so, and Scott himself was a former professional footballer at Wolves, which happens to be my hometown club and the team that I support. So we're going to get into a few questions about Scott, his journey as a professional footballer, and then his journey from professional football into then sportswear brands and gloves. Right, let's get into it.
First, how's quarantine for you?
It's not too bad. The weather, it's been nice for the nice weather. I think it's getting worse as the weather's becoming more miserable.
Yeah, is your mood just going up and down as the sun comes out or goes in?
Not necessarily, no. To be fair, at the minute we've got a sale on, so it started pretty slow. And then we kind of got together and thought, what can we do to try and give a bit back to everyone else and try and get more custom in. So we've discounted the whole range at the minute. We're in the process of obviously doing a new range, so it's conflicted massively, but we've just discounted all the accessories, all the gloves at the minute before we decide what we're keeping next year. And to be fair, that's kept us going for the last 3-4 weeks or so. I think people have kind of seen there's a sale on and gone for it. With the quality of the glove, it's probably the cheapest around at the minute, so people have jumped on it, to be fair, so it's kept us going.
You've just gone straight in there and gone straight for the business talk, but I was actually asking about you
I
personally.
thought that's what you meant. I thought you said, is the money coming in as it goes up and down? That's
No, your mood.
Oh, my mood. Yeah, to be fair, yeah. I've been enjoying the sun the last 4 days. And now I've become a little bit more miserable as the weather's come like this. Stuck inside, so I can't go out as much. I've been sat in my garden with the weather being better.
So how are you filling your days then in quarantine?
So on Sunday nights, I've been outlining what I need to do for the week, but then trying to spread it out for the week. So I still coach full time, so I'm having to contact the boys 3 times a week to make sure they're still doing like their educational side of things and still keeping fit. And then I've got obviously my S1 stuff. I'm trying to expand it out during the week, and then obviously I've got other business with my hats now and my clothing. So just really trying to keep
right now.
Yeah. I'm just trying to keep it busy, trying to keep myself busy. I guess I think sitting doing nothing will keep me and make me insane. So I'm trying to just vacate the week and populate it as much as I can, really.
Nice. It sounds like you're keeping yourself incredibly busy. Notice numbers are ticking up a little bit. Ian Lawler's just in.
Is he?
Yeah, it's just in.
I can see him at the bottom, to be fair.
Having a quick eye. Right, so for the people who are in at the moment, while numbers start coming up a little bit, just in terms of the ways of an introduction for you. So you were a professional footballer. You were at Wolves for a number of years.
Yeah.
So you were there. Then you went on loan to Crawley. So you were in the first team picture at Crawley for a little bit.
Yeah.
You dropped out of football, went into non-league, played for a number of clubs, a good standard of non-league at the top. And before you dropping out of the professional game and the non-league scene completely and started up the S1 brand. That's generally your kind of journey, and that's the kind of things that we're going to be talking through today.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add into that? Is there any? I mean, that's just a little bit of Wikipedia and looking at your LinkedIn.
Not really, no. So I started up S1 as I went into non-league. Well, not directly as I went into it, but during when I was in non-league, that's when I started S1. From there, really nothing. Obviously, I got a bit of a coaching background, but I think you've kind of covered it, really.
All right, great. So let's take it right back to the start. How did you get involved in football? What's your story?
So it started when I was probably like 5 or 6. My dad was a goalkeeper. He'll tell me a good one, but I don't think a very good one. But he played obviously Saturday League and things like that. So it started in the back garden with me and him, in just firing balls at me. Really, I weren't always out to be a goalkeeper. I tried every position, but as soon as I threw myself in goal, I seemed to be all right at it. So I signed for like my local side. I got scouted by Coventry when I was about 7. So I went through the trials there, and they ended up taking me. So my first academy was Coventry when I was 7. Then I ended up getting spotted by West Brom when I was 10, and West Brom took me from Coventry. So a bit of a change. Was at West Brom till I was 14, which I went to Wolves, and then that's where I finished in Wolves till I was 21, yeah. So I literally within clubs from the age of 6 to 20, really, so throughout my whole life.
So you've had a little bit of a tour of the Midlands there.
Yeah.
Between the 3 teams. So what was the main difference between each of the club that you went to?
So obviously Coventry's my local side, the team I support, all my family support. So that was the first club that ever come in for me. West Brom, the reason why I decided to move there, when they approached me, I felt that they were a little bit better in facilities, coaching at the time. So I thought it would be a better move for me to develop where I was at that age. I actually left West Brom when I was 13, 14. I just weren't enjoying it anymore, so I went back to go play Sunday League. But they kept my registration as a player, so they wouldn't release me. So they wanted like a compensation fee. So it was quite difficult for me to get back into a club at the time. Travelling around the country, my dad had probably 15 trials, loads of different places. And then when they found out about the compensation fee, they were put off by it. But I actually was offered by Wolves and Stoke, who said they'd pay it. And I just decided to go for Wolves. It just felt, they kind of got it all done faster than what any other club had done. A lot of other clubs were messing around, and Wolves just went for it. Said they'd get it all sorted for me, made me feel comfortable. So that's why I made that decision, really.
Yeah. So why Wolves over Stoke then?
It was down to the pace of how things were done. I spent probably 3-4 weeks at Stoke, and they said from day one that they were going to take me, but it was just taking a lot of time. I went into Wolves on a Tuesday as like a 14-year-old, took a day off school and went in at Wolves, went for 1 day training with the scholars, and they said they'd sign me. Done. So like, it convinced me that they weren't going to mess around, so I decided to go there. And that was pretty much it, really. They both obviously had great facilities, and they were both big clubs at the time. I think they made probably both in the Premiership at the time. But it's just the fact that Wolves didn't mess around with it and just went for it straight away is why I decided to go there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Wolves fan. I'm a local to Wolves. Got brought up not far around the corner from Compton, the training ground.
Yeah.
So was that in place when you were there, or was that a little?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So I started initially at like a university. So I played my games at Compton, but I trained at like a local university sort of thing. They actually used to have like another indoor dome at Wolves, like a smaller one. So that's where I used to train, but I used to play at Compton. And then when I went full time at I was in my last year at school, I went part full time, part school. I was at Compton full time then. So as I was leaving at around 20, that's when they were really in the development of things. The dome was built, the outdoor Astro was built. But I know, speak to a few friends there that and seeing photos, it's developed even more now. The facilities are amazing. So.
I mean, you touched on a point there that you went around the country, you had loads of trials, and that actually comes to a question that we had in from someone on Instagram. It's from Cameron Fuller X, and he asked, "How do you prepare for a trial?" So is there anything specifically that you used to do? I mean, if you're there going around trialing, you're obviously at Stoke for a long time. How do you get yourself into that trialing mentality?
I think it's difficult to have a kind of mentality going towards it. I think it's important not to overthink things. I think if you're going in and doubting, then it's probably the worst thing you can do. So I went back into that situation when I was 20 and tried to get another professional club, and the mentality of thinking of the worst is probably the worst thing you can do. I kind of go in and say, what's the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen is they say no. That's the worst case scenario. So try and make the best of the situation if you can. Obviously preparation is key, but when you're so young, it's difficult to put in as much preparation as you can in comparison to if you're older, because obviously you're reliant on your parents when you're at a young age. But as you're older, you're independent, you're reliant on yourself. I think it's just important not to overthink things. Going in nervous, you could lose your chance within one session. So it's going in with a free mind and just going for it, really, because it could be your only chance.
Yeah, good advice. I mean, so you were at Wolves then from 14 to 20.
Yeah, 19, 20 it was. I'm trying to think it through. Yeah, 20.
So you went up the age groups.
Yeah.
Got a full-time professional contract at Wolves.
Yeah.
What did you find with the differences as you went through the age groups?
So obviously 14s to 16s, I was a schoolboy. And I found out midway through my under 16s that I was going to get a scholar. So when the year after I left school, I was obviously as a scholar then, and it just completely changed. I actually moved away from home and lived in Diggs. So even though it's only an hour away from Coventry, I moved. And to be fair, I found that really difficult. At the time I was injured, so I weren't playing and weren't really involved in the lads as much. So I found it difficult being away from home from my family and my girlfriend and all my friends. So I ended up moving back home. And from there, I kicked on even more because I was just had familiar surroundings and I enjoyed being around the people that I was used to being around again. And it helped out. Obviously, there's demandments on the physicality side of things. Training every day, it fatigues you way more because it's something that you're not used to. But they kind of balance it out with, obviously, you're doing weights all the time. So you increasing your core strength. And
you go. How's your internet at home? There you go.
Someone called me, to be fair. And then when you turn pro, it's pretty much the same as when you're a scholar, I guess. I just guess there probably is more pressure on you then because rather than you're settled in a team, you're then looking up and the age kind of goes. You're not a 16 to 18 anymore, you're a pro. So you're training with the likes of, like at the time for me, it was like Carl Akimi, who was number one, and I had Wayne Hennessy there at the time, and Thomas Kuzak, and Thomas Kuzak had won the Premiership and Champions League. I was like an 18, 19-year-old boy who just got my freshman contract. It's like, if I want to be where I want to be, I've got to compete with them. So it completely opens it up then. I think at the time there was 5 or 6 pros. So I went from being in a youth team where it was me and one other scholar to being a professional where I was with another 5 pros. So a lot more places of competition. Like it was tough, to be fair. I struggled. You've only got a first team and a reserves. So you've got your number 2 also playing 23s, as well as your number 3, your 4, your 5. So it is a lack of game time, to be fair, which made it difficult.
So in that, you've made the jump into being a pro. Now you're training with Carl Akimi, who's an international, Thomas Kuszak, who's an international, Wayne Hennessy, who became an international.
Yeah, he was out. Wayne was out at the time. I had Doris de Vries,
okay,
Aaron McCary, obviously John Flatt.
Aaron McCary as well was an international, wasn't he?
Yeah, Irish international, yeah. So there was when I was first there, when I was 14, 15, we had Marcus Hanneman there.
Okay.
But for people that I was familiar with were obviously Akimi, Hennessy, De Vries, Kujat, McCary, Flatt. They were obviously Harry Burgoyne, but he was a year below me. So they were like my familiar goalkeepers at the time.
So even the young goalkeepers coming through have all had pretty decent careers there.
Yeah, so Harry was the scholar year below me at the time. So yeah, he's obviously come through and ended up playing first team as well.
So what sort of, you as a young pro training with these guys, what sort of lessons were you taking from them?
Well, Kyle Akimi went at the time when he was number 1 at the club. He was like amazing. Like he just, when you train with goalkeepers, sometimes you always in trainings, especially, it's obviously very technical. So if you've got good hands, you've got good shape, you make saves, you catch the ball how they do. It's all very similar. But when you train with Keems, like it was like unreal. Some of the things he done, you just thought, wow. Like, so he was very inspirational to train with. Obviously, the likes of Wayne and Thomas and Doris and all them were the same as well. But when you're number 1 at the club, you expect them to stand out in the training session. It's like when you're the scholar and you're the second-year scholar and you train with the first-year scholar and the 16s, you're the main man in that training session. So you've got to set the standard and Keane's definitely done that when I train with him. So it kind of gives me something to aspire to, because you actually look at it and think, he's playing in the championship, playing at a top level. That's where I want to be, and there's a lot of work to go there to get to where he was, because he was actually outstanding. He was brilliant at what he'd done.
So would you say he's the best goalkeeper that you've trained with, that you've been with, or is there anyone else that stands out?
I say it all the time as well. He was the best I ever trained with, and I trained with a lot. I went to Cardiff, and David Marshall was there, Simon Moore was there, but Keane's just stood out. Obviously, I was with him day in, day out, but his standard never lowered. I think he obviously come through towards the latter stages of his career at Wolves. That's when he started to gain the respect that I thought he was due, because he was amazing, like really, really good. But he's definitely the best goalkeeper I've trained with, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was there at Wolves for a long time before he got his breakthrough, but he had a number of good goalkeepers in front of him that were keeping him out for a long time.
Yeah.
Matt Murray was there for a while, wasn't he? And
Yeah.
Number 2 and bits. So
he's just good at everything. Like at the time, I think when he broke through, a lot of Wolves fans weren't sure on him, because they didn't know a lot about him. And I think it took a while for him to really gain the respect. I'm not sure, was it in League One when he played a lot and he had a top season? I think that's when they really started to realise he is the real deal. But training with him every day, his standard was immense. He was so good.
So you're at that club for quite a while. How many coaches did you go through at that point?
Goalkeeping wise,
yeah,
three.
And then out of those 3, or out of anyone actually in point, but who's the one goalkeeping coach that's actually made a mark on you?
I'd say Paul Clement, who was like my coach when I was a youth team goalkeeper. So I had Andy Mulliner, who's at Man City now, I think. Paul Clement's actually the first team goalkeeping coach at Huddersfield at the minute. And then I had Pat Mountain, who was obviously the first team goalkeeping coach. I think he's at Bristol City. I'd probably say Clem, because coming from a schoolboy to going into full-time industry, obviously I was quite naive, and it weren't all technical work that he had to work with me. It was like mental side of things as well, and I guess growing up and really learning the game. But he kind of literally, Clem would dilute my performances. I would play, so I'd think I had a storm, and he would go through my clips and pick out the one thing that I didn't do well, and go through it with me and say, right, we're working on that Monday. It was like setting a little bit too high on shots. Just like the way I would strike the ball and just things like that. He was so specific with things, and he did really help me out, to be fair. At times he was tough, but he was young, so he was quite engaging, because he was still obviously a lot older than us, but a young coach who was fun and enthusiastic. It obviously engaged you to want to train harder and do better.
Yeah. Right, so you've gone through Wolves for a number of years. Didn't quite make it at Wolves. It sounds like you've got a lot of people in front of you who are top quality goalkeepers at that point. So then from there you went on loan to Crawley. Yeah,
so I went into Crawley midway through my professional contract at Wolves. So it was in the January transfer window of my first year professional. I went on loan to Crawley.
So talk us through that experience there, because now you're in the first team fold, aren't you, at Crawley?
Yeah, so it come from absolutely nowhere. 6 months into my obviously professional contract at Wolves, kind of with the circumstances of who was in front of me and the amount of goalkeepers there, I made my decision that I thought, I'm not going to be kept on next year. There's way too many goalkeepers. I've got people coming up as well to add on to it. So I just thought, I'm not going to get another deal here. So I actually went and spoke to Kevin Fowell and said, basically, can I move on? And in hindsight, to have a mutual agreement, I'm not going to get another deal. So can I make a move, sort of thing? And he agreed to it, and then rang me the next morning and said that Dean Saunders had rang up and asked for me to go on loan to Crawley. He was the manager when I was, I think, probably 15, 16 perhaps. So he was actually the manager at Wolves when I was there. And when they first said to me, I was kind of surreal. I didn't really believe it. So we're in League One at the time. I've gone from being on the bench in the 23s at Wolves to being involved in a first team at League One. So it was something that I didn't believe it till I saw it, sort of thing. It happened really quickly. I travelled to the training ground at Wolves, and my granddad on the Friday signed, and travelled up to Blackburn to go and train with them. I had Fleetwood away on the Saturday. So it all happened within one day. I trained with the first team on the Friday, and then I was involved straight away on the Saturday. And the memories that I had at Crawley was like something that I'll never forget. So I think I was on the bench probably about 10 times. And I had Lewis Price, who's played in the Championship plenty of times at Rotherham now, who was playing in front of me. And I come in for Brian Jensen, who obviously had a stint at Burnley. So Jens was the goalkeeper, was being like acting as a goalkeeping coach at the time. He'd done something to his thumb, so he was out for like 4 to 5 weeks. And so they brought me in. But it was an amazing experience being around the first team. It's just completely different to what I was doing at Wolves.
So what's that main step up then between 23s and first team league?
It was quite, it's difficult to explain because I've gone from Wolves to where I did train with the first team anyway at Wolves, like every day with the goalkeepers, and then some days with the actual first team, and if not, I'd go to the 23s. So I've gone, it was difficult because Wolves is fancy facilities, and I'm training with top goalkeepers every day on absolute grass pitches, like beautiful pitches, like, and I've gone to Crawley where the first day I was training on a parks pitch where the woman's walking around walking her dog. So it was a bit of a reality check for me, really, because it's gone from being really nice for me to now I'm walking and there's just a random lady saying hi to me walking her dog. Wolves is a private land, like you don't see anyone. But Crawley was like, literally, you're at like a local football club training. So training wise, it was a lot different. It was just me, Brian, and Pricey. We sometimes had like a non-league goalkeeper coming in to help up the numbers. At Wolves, we'd have 6 goalkeepers plus a goalkeeping coach. So it's completely different, really. If anything, the training I was getting at Wolves was probably more beneficial because of the facilities and the amount of lads we had involved. But then when I went to Crawley, it was obviously more diluted due to obviously their financial state compared to Wolves. So it was just definitely different for me.
And then how long were you actually at Crawley for? So you were involved in 10
I spent about 5 weeks there, 4 to 5 weeks. I was involved in around 10 games, yeah, off the top of my head. It was in January, so we had a lot of Tuesdays, Saturdays. Right. At the end of it, I think probably about 5 weeks later, I come back to Wolves. Brian Jensen was becoming fit, and Dean Saunders said to me, do I want to stay or do I want to go? At the time, I knew that my contract was up, so I said I want to go to try and get a new deal somewhere. In hindsight, I wish I stayed because Pricey ended up getting injured. Brian ended up coming back in and playing. So if I was in and around it, I could have got a sniff at it. So I could have actually played, but I made the decision to try and get something more secure at the time.
So then what was your next step then? Your contract's running out at Wolves.
Yeah, so from there, I went back to Wolves to train. But then that was the start of my trial process, really. Okay. I was going into loads of different clubs and trying to earn a contract. I got called into Chesterfield a couple of weeks after as a similar role as Crawley, really, throwing us back up. I played like an in-house game for them against Sheffield United, and I'd done quite well. And they were going to sign. They were in talks with a goalkeeper called Alex Kearns, who's currently at Fleetwood, but I think he was at Leeds at the time. They were going to sign Kearnsy, but I was messaging him at the time because they said, "Look, we're going for Alex. If that don't work out, then we'll sign you. Like, we thought you've done well." And when I was messaging Alex didn't know anything about it, and that broke down. So then I was expecting to go on loan there, and then I heard they said we're just going to contact Wolves to make sure that everything's all right. And then that night, I hadn't heard anything back from Chesterfield, hadn't heard anything back from Wolves, and Chesterfield signed John Flatt, who was the goalkeeper year above me.
Right.
There's not much more that can actually be said about that, but I went on trial there and done a day's training and had a day's game the day after. I actually played and then trained. And I think it was Eric Nixon, the goalkeeping coach, and I trained with Tommy Lee. And it was such a tough... Look, after the game, because I hadn't played regularly for a long time, I felt quite leggy after the game. I think I'd done loads of goal kicks, so I felt a bit tight. Had to train the next day, and he was like, it was so tough. Like, it was up and down, explosive stuff. And I thought, I've got a chance here. But then through communication, through the goalkeeping coach at Wolves and whatever else, they ended up sending Flatty and I was just stuck with nothing. So it killed me. I just went back on trial at other places, but nothing really worked out. Obviously, at the time, at being 19, 20, I was an inexperienced goalkeeper, so I'd only played probably 20 games at non-league, played a few games at the 23s level. I'd been on the bench in League One, but actually physically playing games in men's football, I didn't have much. So I think that's what come against me, really.
So from there, then you went into non-league. You went into semi-professional.
Yeah.
Right. So, which club did you go to?
So I went when I first come out of Wolves, that the following season, had a lot of offers in non-league. I had offers like abroad. I had offers in Scotland. Crawley did come back and make me an offer, but it would have cost me to play there, if that makes sense. Like it was like Crawley's like 4 hours away from where I live, and it was no accommodation, no travel or anything like that, and like minimal money. So it ended up I wouldn't have actually been able to afford to do it. I had offers, like a lot of offers in non-league, but I didn't really. Again, naivety. I didn't really know what was the right one for me. Non-league's very brutal. Like you can go in somewhere, especially as a young kid, and be bombed straight away. And to be fair, I went to Kettering and signed and had a nice offer, some nice money that would have tipped me along, thinking like, oh, I'll play here and hopefully go back up the ladder again. And when it got to like the latter end of the pre-season, he ended up bringing in a 29-year-old goalkeeper that had played 300 games in that level, and I was bombed again. So I was back to where I started 2 games before the season started without a club. So they sent me to Rugby Town, which was step 4, that's where I work there now for the academy. But when I went there, facility was amazing, and I thought I'll just play a few games here. So that was my the first club that I played an actual league game for off the back of Wolves.
And then what do you think were the main differences that you got there between pro settings? You've been in what was the Championship with Wolves, then down into League One, then you're into a good standard and non-league at Kettering, now you're at Rugby Town. What are the main differences between the 2 different setups you got?
I think it was more brutal. Obviously, you're going in as a number 1 at a non-league club. You've got people look at you and think, is this lad come from Wolves? Look at you and think, oh, he's a big time Charlie. You've got men there that have got proper jobs, and this isn't their job. It's gone from being my job to now I'm with people that have an actual job, and it's not football. And that's all I ever knew. So I've gone into an environment where lads are getting £100, £150, and that could pay towards their mortgage. So when I'm not doing what they want me to do, or not doing as good as they expect me to do, then they're hammering me. And some of the stuff that you get in non-league when you come in and you're not up to expectations, but any little thing that you do, you'll have a manager or one of your players in front of you giving you some jip. They'll be giving you some abuse. So it was difficult for me to try and adapt to be honest, because you've gone from being kind of cushioned and you're in an academy environment where you're a play 23s game, you've probably got 100 there watching. If you're at a nice stadium, you might have 1,000. But then you go into non-league and you've got your own fans who are paying to watch you. You've got away fans who are paying to abuse you. And it was a bit of a reality check. It is difficult, to be fair.
Now, it was around that point you actually played against Phil Martin, #United original Phil Martin, and he messaged me and he said, Phil Martin, he said, yeah, played against Scott when he played for Buckingham, and you played for
Banbury. It was. I was on loan at Banbury. I was actually young. I was actually a scholar. 18 or what? No, 17, 18. Yeah.
Okay, so it was actually before this time.
Yeah, so I went on loan to Banbury they offered me my pro. So I was 17. They offered me my pro, and then Banbury manager rang my dad and said, "We need a goalkeeper." They're rock bottom of the league. And yeah, I went there. That was some experience.
Yeah, his words to me were actually, yeah, he's a proper goalkeeper. Made everything look incredibly easy.
It's nice to get a compliment like that. It's been a while since I've had one of them.
There you go. So that's from Phil. Phil's a good player as well in his time. So what was it? What made you? Because you're not playing now.
No.
You're not that old.
No, 24 I am. Just turned. So
why did you stop playing?
I guess enjoyment. I think when you've involved in it for so long at what is a serious level, and it's not as enjoyable all the time as everyone thinks, and everyone aspires to be in the academy and everyone aspires to be a professional footballer. But when you've done it from 6 up to 20 and you've been full time for 4 or 5 years, it drained me a little bit because I had so much disappointment along the way. So through the ages from 18 to 20, all I had was let down, setback. And I was strong to go again, but it come to a point where I just thought, I've had enough of this. I've had enough of being let down, and I didn't want to. And people are entitled to do this, and you see people that hold on to it for years and years and years, and that's down to them. And sometimes it pays off, and sometimes it don't. But I always sat down with myself and thought, I don't want to hold on to the dream for years and be sat here at where I am now, 24, still just playing non-league, because I've been trying to get back into the professional game for 4 or 5 years. I wanted to essentially earn money. I wanted to try and get a job and earn money and try and create a career for myself. So I put football on the back burner. I played non-league. I actually played for my dad, which was step 5 at the time, so still a half decent level. But kind of when I got a job, I probably had about 4 or 5 different jobs along the way. And then I set up different things. Like I've done coaching and tried to set up things to try and, I guess, set me up a career.
So is it at this point then you've started S1 Goalkeeping?
Yeah, so I started S1 Goalkeeping. I was playing for Spinks. I was playing step 5 for Spinks. I was working on a site with one of my friends, Scott, who obviously is my co-director, co-owner. And I was always had the idea of making my own gloves. I thought, like, I was sponsored by Puma, I'd bought sales, I'd been to Just Keepers where my dad would spend £60, £70 on a pair of all sports for me to come back and say, Dad, they're ruined after a game or two. I've always had the idea of making my own gloves, but you're very optimistic when you first start messaging suppliers. There's hundreds of thousands of suppliers out there who tell you how good and brilliant their gloves are, and it's a difficult one. And at the time, they asked for a sum of money to invest in it, and I weren't really prepared to do it on my own. So because it could have literally been, they send you 25 pairs of gloves that look horrible, feel horrible, and you just threw your money away. So at the time when I'm like 21, still not really got a proper job or a proper career, I said to my friend Scott at the time, I just said, look, do you want to go halves with me on this? And he said, yeah. And then from there, we're where we are now. It's just something that we went for a bit of fun, and it's obviously developed.
Yeah, there's got to be a driving reason behind you going, right, a glove brand is where I want to go.
So obviously having the background of being a goalkeeper, I just felt that I see so many people pay so much money for gloves, and I see so many people wear all the top brands and wear all this and that, and it's so costly. Being full-time, you realise how many gloves you do go through, and then you appreciate the wear of gloves, that it could be, you could wear them for 10 games, they could still be in perfect condition. But all you've got to do is catch the ball in the wrong manner, land on the wrong palm, and your gloves are ruined. You could spend £150 on a pair of gloves, land on them, and they're gone. So I just thought we need to appreciate trying to bring out quality, but still make it affordable for people. I wanted people to be able to still have a glove that is up there with everyone, but still be able to afford it. Because at the end of the day, like I say, they could go after one game, and I have good contacts in the game. I have good friends that are goalkeepers. I just thought, why not? Let's go for it. Bit of fun. I'm very driven with things. I like to try and get things done. And at the time, like I say, there was nothing really. I didn't really have my eyes set on anything. I was doing a bit of coaching, and I was being a labourer on a working site. I just thought, let's have a bit of fun.
How long ago was that?
I'm trying to think. I feel like it's 3 years ago. I feel like we're coming up to our 4th year this Christmas, but I don't know if it's our 3rd or not. Off the top of my head, I don't know. But
I think I've worn them for 3.
I think it may be coming up to our 4th then, because I said it the other day. So it's around 3 years ago, not long after 3 years ago. Now we started. When we started, it was just a bit of fun. Like I say, we had a glove that was very basic. Spent a lot of money on a small quantity, and was completely optimistic of what it was going to be like. It could have been anything. They could have sent us marigolds. They could have sent us knives. We didn't know what it was going to be like. And I made a Twitter account, followed a few people, managed to speak to a few people, a few non-league goalkeepers, a few non-league goalkeepers that I knew. I had Nick Townsend, who's still with us now. He was at Barnsley, number 2, know him from my playing days. And look, I said, look, I'm making some gloves. I'll send you a few pairs. If you like them, wear them for me. And he liked them. He wore them. We had David Groff, who I knew of. I opened a conversation with him and said, look, again, we'll send you a few pairs. If you like them, can you do it? And it just went from there, really. We're very lucky that season that Groff won the Hungarian Premiership. So he played for Budapest Honvéd, and he was on telly like 2-3 times. They won the Hungarian Premiership, which is like the first time they've done it in God knows how long. He's wearing S1s who were like nobodies. No one's heard of them. We've got someone in the Championship on the bench. And I think it was important to create a database of non-league goalkeepers and people that you can connect with and build relationships with. And that's what I've done, really, focused on a lot of non-league. Like the first person that springs to mind is Shane Murphy at Dorchester, and he was at Dorchester at the time, and he bought into it. And I think that's the important thing, that people actually taking the risk.
So describe the brand in 3 words.
Oh, affordable.
People who don't know it. 3
affordable,
words.
Quality, and I'm going to go for trustworthy. But what I'm trying to say with trustworthy is a relationship with not just your brand, the people behind it. I feel like I'm very open, and I'm happy to give my number out to people that want to message me about the gloves. I'm happy to speak to people on social media. I'm happy to come out and speak to people. I'm not someone that hides behind social media and hides behind the brand. If something goes wrong, I'll come out and speak to you about it. If you want to buy more than 1 pair and want a bit of discount, and you want to be cheeky and ask me for a discount if you want to buy 4 or 5, I'll support it. So I just wanted to build a relationship with people. I see people really do focus on their professionals and their top people. I wanted to give the same respect and same attention to someone that might be playing for their Sunday team, for their pub team, as well as my Ian Lord, who plays for Doncaster. I wanted just to give everyone the same time and respect, really.
So where do you see it going? Where do you want to take the brand?
It's safe to say that we're overwhelmed with what it's become, with what we first aspired it to be. So it was 2 mates that set up a brand to have a bit of fun. Let's see where it goes. I still play, I'll wear them. We'll just, if anything, I'm saving myself a bit of money because I can wear my own gloves. It's overwhelming where we're at now. We've got like 2, 3 full-time staff. We're looking at getting a premises. We're ordering thousands of gloves. We've got the likes of yourself, a lot of other ambassadors and professionals on board. If you said to me that it would be here 3 years ago, I'd laugh at you. I'd never ever think it would be that. I guess the aspirations now are just to grow and grow. I think on the pyramid, the only league that we haven't made is the Premiership. We've made Championship with Nick Townsend, which is funny because he was the first guy we ever had to wear them. He played for Barnsley in the Championship. All now we need is the Premiership, and that would be a fairy tale, I guess. It would be amazing. I want to try and just get it out there as much as possible to get as many people in the gloves, I guess, really. But I never want to set my sights on too much, because where we've got with what we had to start off with is amazing.
So what's your favourite glove? What do you wear?
I'm just going to turn the light on, Andy, because I feel like I'm fading away.
There you go. I like it's Dan Hadji's in the chat. Dan Hadji.
Say again, sorry.
What gloves do you wear?
So, to be fair, I've been through a lot of them. I was always a roll finger when I played. But funnily enough, I've seemed to go for the hybrids really here with the S1s. I do like the negatives as well, which seems to be... I've never ever really liked the feel of a negative glove, but I've kind of bought into the feel of these ones. I think I ended up... it's funny, I had a pair of Ian's. I went and met Ian to give him some gloves, and he gave me a pair of his old ones. I went and coached, and I only had his gloves, so I put them on and I loved them. So then from then I thought, oh, I'll go for these ones. Obviously, we always test the gloves anyway, but it's always down to personal preference. You've got hundreds and hundreds of people that wear the gloves and they all go for different cuts. It's difficult to dictate who likes what. And I would happily wear anything now that I'm not playing. Cut for me isn't really a matter. I guess it's just comfort. But they all kind of have a similar comfort.
Nice. Right. Got some questions here from people who've put stuff in from Instagram previously. So I'm just going to go through these. We've got 4 or 5 questions. You've answered one already, actually, straight away. But Joe MC414, going back, I think, a little while, going away from the glove, says, who was your hardest ever opponent and why?
So I've played against my age group, like Dele Alli, Jack Grealish. I think I've come up against Rashford previously, obviously James Maddison. But
you're just dropping a load of names there, aren't you?
The person that actually stands out to me will be someone don't actually know. It's sort of James Wilson. It was from Manchester United.
Centre forward, James Wilson.
Yeah, he's at Salford now. I think he's been at Aberdeen. He was unreal, like amazing. Like he scored a hat trick against me. It was Man United away. I remember him picking it up from the halfway line, beating 7 or 8 men and just slotting me. He was a joke. There's a lot of lads that stood out. Obviously, Grealish, I grew up playing against Grealish from the age of 6 because every age group I played against him and he stood out every game. He was someone, because he was Villa and I was local, I already knew about him. We knew of each other. When you go to Manchester and you play against someone you don't know about, you're like, who's that? It stands out. So I would probably say James Wilson, but it don't take away some of the local lads that at the time I already kind of knew. So it didn't surprise me that they were good.
Mate, I had no idea that you played against those players.
Well, Maddis is obviously from Coventry.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, he's year below me.
Your age group?
Year below me at Coventry.
Right.
Grealish is my age. Danny Crowley was at Villa, is the year below me. I had Damari Gray, obviously, who's made it massive now. He was at Birmingham when we were growing up.
Yeah.
He was obviously good as well, but like I say, I don't think you ever appreciate them as much when you play against them, like say 2 or 3 times a season. You already know that they're good, like Grealish, Damari Gray. You know that they're good. You play against them all the time. When you go and you start playing against teams that live further away, when you're 16 to 18, then you start seeing a different caliber of players. And James Wilson definitely stood out. And I know at the time he was a hot prospect there, but I don't know if he ever lived up to what they expected. But he's still playing pro, so
hot prospect sounds like champ manager. So Yusuf 5208 asks, "What's okay? You're going to give some tips to young goalkeepers about becoming pro. What tip would you give? What's your number 1 tip?"
It would be to work hard when no one's watching. Definitely.
Go on.
A lot of people always will work hard when everyone's watching you, do an extra to try and get the brownie points if the coaches are out there, or do an extra to put it on your social media. But the people that do the stuff that no one actually knows about, I think deserve the credit more than anyone. And it's something that I didn't do. So that's why I can talk about from experience that when you're leaving after your day at 4 o'clock, so I had a bus to get, plus a train, then another bus. I was leaving at 4 o'clock and I was walking past that gym, hammering the lads in there, saying you're so busy, what you're doing extra like. But then a lot of the boys that still do that stuff are ones that are still in the game now. And I think it's so important that as you start surrounding yourself with better players all the time, and even now if I go and meet the boys, like I get along with Ian Lawler really, really well. And not long ago I went round his and we went out some food together and stuff like that. And he was on the bench that day for Doncaster against Coventry. So trying to get himself back into the team. The way he lived his life and that his lifestyle was like so dedicated and professional. It really shows that you've got to make sacrifices and you've got to do the right things to try and get to the top. I've gone and met him and had a few beers and tried to unwind, and Ian's water, he's eating frozen yogurt. He's so professional, even though at the time you think a lot of people could go, I'm not getting in the team. I'm gonna just do what I want. He's at something he's trying to work hard at, and he was just completely, it's like a different lifestyle. Even now I know that they're in quarantine and he's bought a bike, he's bought weights, he's bought himself gym stuff, and he's every single day doing things like that. And I think no one knows that people are doing that. No one knows that he's doing his cycling and all stuff like that, but he's just doing it for himself to try and better himself. So I think people that do stuff for themselves rather than for other people to show off, I think that will get you further than anything else.
Going back, if you were going back to have a word with the 14-year-old Scott Dutton, what would you tell him?
To do extra, do more.
Yeah.
Don't start, because you can never get the time back. And it's easy to look back and say, if I was there, I'd stay out and I'd work harder. If I was there, I'd stay in the gym and do more. Because when you're there, it's all at your feet. You think, I'm at Wolves, like I'm decent. I've got great technical ability, but sometimes that's not enough. And for the sake of an extra hour onto your day, looking back at it now, what would an extra hour a day really affect you? Because you're looking back on something that you want to be that you're not. So just to put an extra hour in of something that you want to achieve is nothing now. At the time, it feels like so much. You get home later, you're wasting time to go and do things that you want to do. But if you kind of invest more time into yourself, you're only going to reap the rewards from it. So it's a sore subject for me to look back and try and give myself some more advice. But obviously, I've matured and I'm more switched on now to what I was. So I guess it's
brand underneath you.
Yeah, it's inspired me to do other things, I guess.
Is there a question talking about gloves? It's from Connor493. He asks, do you wear different gloves for different surfaces or different weather?
I think you can. I think we personally at S1 don't have specific gloves for specific weather. We made the gloves like all weather. So we would say that they perform in all weather sort of thing. I know other glove brands do things where they have like a AstroTurf glove or a wet weather glove. But for me, it's not really something that I believe in. I believe you try and make a latex that performs in any conditions, because you might like the white glove, but they're wet weather. I might like the black glove, but they're AstroTurf. So I've got to pick for latex rather than style. So if you can provide something that works in all conditions, you can then choose whatever you want. So I personally never really wore anything that was specific to that. And I take it forward with the brand. I want to try and provide something that works in every condition, because with how the predicament of our weather in England, you could be playing on a blazing summer's day and then it's raining. So you've got gloves that only perform in dry, and it starts hammering it down, then you're knackered. You have to go for a glove swap.
Well, when I was growing up, all the goalkeepers used to have a little glove bag, stick it in the back of the net. And no one ever knew what was in that glove bag. Maybe they had many gloves.
Another spare pair of gloves.
Maybe.
It's funny because I used to always have a pair of warm-up gloves, then have a pair of match gloves. But it got to a stage where at West Brom, it was raining. I warmed up in my gloves, put my match gloves on, had a stinker, and it was always a superstition of mine that no matter if it's raining, no matter how muddy it is, I'll always warm up if I'm playing in my match gloves. So I'll wear it into the wet, or wear it into the conditions, and I'm ready to go. Obviously, if I was on the bench and I knew that I was on the bench, then I would just wear my warm-up gloves, whatever. But if I was starting, whether it was an hour or two, whatever, I would always warm up in my match gloves to get myself ready for the conditions.
Yeah. Right, here's a question from Will Healy that's come in. He said, who was your biggest mentor in football?
My dad. Definitely my dad. It all started with my dad in my back garden. He took me when I left West Brom, and I got told that it had to be compensation. He was the one that driven me up and down the country. I went to Crewe. I went to Bristol City, which is miles away from Coventry. Had to be there at 6 o'clock, and he's finishing work to try and get me from Coventry to Bristol City. Obviously going at quite a fast speed. But he's been with me throughout everything, and him and my granddad would come and watch every single game. It got to a stage when I was 16 to 18, my dad was managing, so my granddad then would take me to every game. Even if I was on the bench at Newcastle away, knowing that I was on the bench, I was under 15 with the 16s. My granddad drove up to Newcastle to watch me get 10 minutes at the end of the game, which is 4.5 hours away from Coventry, and drove me home, so I didn't have to get the coach on the way back. them two have done loads for me, like throughout it all. So it was whenever I had any news, good news, I would ring them two straight away to tell them. Obviously, my mum has been really supportive, and more so then going forward to like the glove stuff. My girlfriend and my friends are really supportive towards it. But at the time when I was playing, definitely my dad. He used to review me after the game, and even when I was young, tell me how good or bad I was. So he's always always wanted to impress him, I guess, when I was playing.
Right, last question. You can have a training session with 3 keepers, any era. Who and why?
Joe Hart's definitely the first one. He was someone that was. He's like, if you had to pick a goalie for me, it's Joe Hart. He was obviously playing whilst I was aspiring to kind of get to where I want to be, and I just thought he was outstanding.
Joe Hart was a fantastic keeper in his time.
Unbelievable, yeah. And he was my favourite ever goalkeeper. I don't know, put me on the spot here really.
I didn't take that one.
Joe Hart is like my go-to goalkeeper that I just think, Joe Hart's my favourite. Steve Grizovic, because
Coventry
he won the FA Cup. He won the FA Cup with Coventry, so obviously he means more to my dad and granddad than me. But it would be nice to go and train with the man that won the FA Cup with Coventry. And then I'm thinking international. Yeah, I'm trying to think. It's got to be someone like Buffon. Even now, go and train with him now, because he's 42 or whatever he is, and he's still playing at the highest level in the world. Like,
I was going to say, this training session is those guys in their prime. So it's not a Grizovic now, who's most probably
I know. Yeah, he's the goalie coach at Cardiff, to be fair. When I was doing a bit of coaching there, so I know that I wouldn't be able to train with him now. I'd probably be up there, wouldn't I, in that session?
Joe Hart in his prime would most probably be late 20s. Steve Grizovic, most probably. I'm not sure how old he was when he won the FA Cup. But you could take Buffon now at 42.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I can't believe that he's still doing it. And like 42, and he's not. When your outfield players get older, don't they, and they start going down the leagues a little bit, or go play for their hometown club or whatever. He's at PSG.
Yeah.
And he's 42. Cheers. Like, he's not. He hasn't dropped any levels whatsoever.
Yeah, I'd like to see what he's like in training now. If you listen to the latest Peter Crouch podcast with Kasper Schmeichel, he talks about when he was at Man City and David Seaman was at Man City in the twilight of his career. He basically just, if it was straight at him, he caught it, he saved it. If it was to one side or the other, he was like, "No, I'm saving that for Saturday."
It's funny though, because you will have goalkeepers that aren't trainers, but they're good in matches. So like, Thomas Kujat was a perfect example of that, because he come in and you think, wow, Thomas Kujat, like Man United, Champions League, Premier League. When he trained, you had to kind of look, oh wow, like. But then when he played, he was unbelievable. Like some of the stuff he done and his techniques were like, he'd punch it and he'd do things. You think, what's he doing? And then he'd play on a Saturday and he was unbelievable. So you do see different types of people in training and games.
Right, Scott, that's our time up.
Perfect.
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Mate, I thoroughly enjoyed that. Good chat.
Yeah,
nice to know you a
likewise.
little bit more as well. After all this time.
We could go on forever, I reckon.
Sorry?
I think we've gone forever.
Yeah, mate, I enjoyed that. We chat a little bit anyway, but I don't know. I've never gone into this much detail with you. It's nice to know a little bit.
To be fair, I don't really like talking about it, because when it's like the conversations you have when you're in the pub and you've had a few beers and people talk about what you could have been or what you could have done, and I don't like focusing on what I kind of not wasted, but my opportunity that I didn't take full advantage of. I like trying to talk about the present and what I'm trying to grow and do now. So it's a great achievement. I am really proud of it, but I'll try and focus on other things instead, I guess, now.
It's a journey that you've gone through, though, and it's a journey that you go from A step to B step to C step, and little stepping stones along the way. So you wouldn't be who you are now without the experience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's what I'd like to think. That's my thoughts.
Hopefully, yeah. But thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, and we'll look forward to next week, and we'll see who's on.
Yeah, so that's something for those guys who are watching now. For the people that are left, that we've got a number of people lined up from S1 to come and chat on a weekly basis. So they'll be able to hear a little bit more about other pro goalkeepers and whatnot that's gone in.
With a better playing career than me, so it'll be a bit more interesting.
But not about gloves, though.
No, it won't be. Hopefully they speak well of everything, so we'll see. But it's something to look forward to, definitely.
Nice one.
Nice one, Andy. Take care,
Thank
mate.
you very much.
Bye-bye.
Okay. See you later.